or use the people inside of your group. Alright, so just quickly recap. We talked about standard form and the fact that a cannot be a fraction or a negative number. And then for the first equation, they asked us to solve for y, which is the same thing as getting our equation into slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. The first one we moved the 2x over and then divided by a negative 5, and we ended up with a positive 2 over 5x. 2 over 5 was our slope, which told us to go up 2 and to the right 5 from our y-intercept. And in this case, because we don't have a y-intercept, it's assumed to be 0, and we start off at 0. Here, we did the same thing, so we moved 5x to the other side. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you put 5x on the other side, or you move anything from one side to the other, how I put this minus 5x away from that minus 2, they're not the same term. I've seen kids all the time, they put it right underneath this minus 2, and now all of a sudden they have a minus 7x on the right side. That's just not right. And then we divided both sides by a negative 1, and we get y equals 5x plus 2. They asked us, what is our m and what is our b? What is our slope and what is our y-intercept? Somebody sitting in seat number 12. What is my m?
5.
M is 5. And what is my b? 2. And it's the same thing as saying 5 over 1. All right, 10 more points for group B, which means that we're going up 5 and to the right 1 from my y-intercept, which is your starting point. So I'm going to start off at 2, and then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then to the right 1. I'll also go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to the left 1. And then if you're particular, we'll use a straight edge to create your line. Yes, sir. You ready to give up that pass this early? Okay, go ahead. Write what time you leave and then what time you come back. Huh? Yeah, here you go. I'll take that for a little bit. I don't know which one I keep. Here. Alright. Let's look down to example 2, where it says find the slope through the points. When you're finding a slope and they give you 2 points, we're going to use a slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, it doesn't matter which point you label as x1, y1, and x2, y2, as long as you plug them into the right place. And the reason why I write the formulas over and over again is to help me remember the formulas, and if you have to take the TSI exam before you graduate, they're not going to give them to you. So if I plug in my points, y2 is 0, minus y1, which is 1, over x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is 0, I end up with a negative 1 over 3, which is my m. Put a nice box around it so that I don't have to go looking for it. Yes, ma'am. Better? Sorry. The ring was in the way, or? Okay. Now let's look at B. It's the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. You label your points as x1, y1, x2, y2, and it's the same formula every time you want to find slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What you may see this as, ladies and gentlemen, is change in y divided by change in x. A triangle or delta symbol generally means change. So if I plug in, I've got a negative 3 minus a negative 1 all over negative 2 minus 4. And what happens when I have a minus right next to a negative? Turn it to a positive. What's your name, boss? Huh? Alan? 5 points for raising your hand. I appreciate the answers, though, from everybody. So it becomes a positive. 5 points for group D. So this is a negative 3 plus 1, which is a negative 2, over Negative 2 minus 4, which is a negative 6. A negative divided by a negative is a what? Positive. Everybody, thank you. 5 points for group B. I saw their hand raised, but I did say, just in general, I didn't call on anybody. So this is going to be a 1 over 3, which is your M. I got 1 over 3 because to simplify a fraction, you're going to divide by the greatest common factor. So I divided the top by 2, and I divided the bottom by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Any questions? It should be a bit of a review from what we've done to this point. Alright, let's go on to example 3. Example 3, it says write the equation in point-slope form of a line that goes through these 2 points. Point-slope form is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. It's called point-slope form because you need 2 things. Somebody raise your hand and tell me, what 2 things do you need? Yes, ma'am. You need a point and the slope. Okay? 10 points for group D. It's at least, right? So if we're going to use point slope form, what didn't they give us? They didn't give us what? Everyone? Slope. So we have to use the slope formula to be able to find it. So I've got x1, and then y1, and then x2 and y2. And then I plug that into my formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 is 6 minus y1, which is a negative 2. x2 is 1 minus a negative 3. What happens to the minus and negative, everyone?
Turns to positive.
Turns to a positive. I appreciate that enthusiasm. Andrew, 5 points for group C. Turn those to a positive. 6 plus 2 is 8. 1 plus 3 is 4. And that simplifies to a 2. So that means that my M is 2. And if I want to write this in point slope form, I'm going to use my formula that I used earlier. I wrote out y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. I'm going to write it again because it doesn't hurt. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And then I just plug in. So my m was 2, but my y1 before that is y minus y1, which is a negative 2, equals m, which is 2x minus x1, which is a negative 3. What happens to those minus and negative symbols? Becomes positive. And then my equation is y plus 2 equals 2x plus 3. Now, just for sake of practice, I'm going to show you all how to convert this to slope-intercept form. So if I want to change this to slope-intercept form, they didn't ask us to do it. So I'm going to say change to slope-intercept form. Because we were done actually here. But the algebra is what sometimes trips people up. Here's our equation. Y plus 2 equals 2, open parentheses, x plus 3. Our first step would be to what, everyone? Starts with a D.
Distribute.
I need some more energy. Everyone. Distribute. Thank you. Distribute the 2 to both sides. Y plus 2 equals 2x plus 6. and then someone I have not heard from today, sitting in seat 8. What would I do next? Subtract 2 from both sides. I put the 2 under the 6. I don't want to put the 2 under the 2x. These two cancel, and I've got y equals 2x plus 4. So now I put my equation in slope-intercept form. Now for the fun part. Everyone get your phones out. And I want you to open up the web browser and type in www.desmos.com. And when you get to Desmos, you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. I have it written up here too. desmos.com. Desmos.com. Yep. And then we're going to go down to the bottom. And then it says graphing a function. So one of the turn this light off. At the bottom it says graphing calculator. When you tap graphing calculator, it actually brings up a fully functional graphing calculator. So everyone now has a graphing calculator. The first thing I'm going to do is to graph the first 2 points that they gave me. So I'm going to open parentheses, -3, comma, and then -2, close parentheses, and then actually I'm going to do a table just to make it easier. So I'm going to add a table, and I'm going to type in those same points. So if you do the plus symbol, there's an option for a table. Press the plus symbol, and there's an option for a table. And in the table, we're going to type in -3, and then my y value is a -2, and then my second point, which is not letting me type it in, this is a 6, and then the first point was a 1. So it graphed my 2 points for me. Ladies, let's stay with me. It graphed my 2 points for me. Now I'm going to add an expression. So you push the plus symbol, and you go to where it says expression. So I've already typed in my table, and then I'm going to go up to where it says expression. So my first thing said table, and now I'm going to do expression. And I'm going to literally type in my point slope form of my equation. So I got y plus 2 is equal to 2, open parentheses, x plus 3. And then close my parentheses. And as you look, it goes through both of those points that we originally had listed. So we know that we created the right equation for the right line. And then if you want to check and see whether or not you did the right math, when we converted it to slope-intercept form, if you push the plus symbol, and we had another expression, and you type in y equals 2x plus 4, as you see, the red line overlaps my black line, and I only have one line. So I did the right algebra when I converted from point slope form to slope intercept form. So the first thing I did was enter my table. Second thing I did was enter my point slope form, and the third thing I did was enter my slope intercept form. And it basically told me that all of my math to this point was right. So it's a way for you to check yourself. When you're at home, and you're in flex, and you're in another class trying to get your homework done before class. We're going to come back to this in a little bit. So go ahead and close your phone, turn it off, put it upside down on your desk. We're going to come back to it, so you want to at least keep it handy. Now you're going to do the exact same thing for B that we did for A, but I'm not going to work through it just in the interest of time. But when I post my notes, I'll actually have it in there. So let's look at example 4. It says write the equation of the lines. So we're looking at a horizontal line that goes to the point 4, comma 1. Somebody I haven't heard from, raise your hand and tell me a horizontal line has a slope. It has an M of what? What's the slope of a horizontal line? Yes, ma'am. What is it? It is 0. My slope of a horizontal line is 0. My slope of a horizontal line is 0. Which means that if I write an equation, it'll be y equals 0x plus some number. And in this particular case, I can get my number that goes in B by simply just taking my y value, which is 1. So my equation is y equals 1. That's it. And if I wanted to graph it, at y equals 1, I go up 1. And here's my line, and there's my slope for 0, and the equation y equals 1. Yes, ma'am. So a horizontal line is left to right, and that means that your line isn't going up or down, so your slope is 0. So if your slope is 0, if we plugged in a 0 into your slope intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, the 0 and the x will go away, and the only thing you will be left with is your y-intercept, which is 1. And since they gave us a point that our graph goes through, we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be equal to 1. And that's how we know what the 1 is for our equation. We can go over 999 times, it's still going to be 1. Because all values of x are 1. Are going to be equal to 1 for y, if you have a horizontal graph. Now, if we have a vertical, did I give y'all points, Group E, for that? No? 15 points for Group E. So if we have a vertical line, we're looking at B. Someone I haven't heard from before today. What is the slope? Was that a stretch, or you raising your hand? All right, what is the slope? The slope of a vertical line is what? I can't hear you. It's not 0. 0 is for a horizontal line. It's either going to be 0. You need assist. I'll come back to you in a minute because you got the equation. Go ahead. It's undefined. My M or my slope is undefined. Group B, 10 points. And in my equation, you were right. My equation is going to be x equals a negative 3. And then if I graph this, I go back 1, 2, and 3 for x. And here's my line. All I do is just pull the x value from my coordinates that they gave us. Everybody good on that one? Remember these notes that we did the other day, where you had a positive slope, negative slope, 0 slope, and undefined? All right, I will, once we get done, turn off that projector if you need to just recopy it, because these are good reference points. Moving right along. Example 5, ladies and gentlemen. They're saying we're going to write the equation of a line that passes through this point and is parallel to this equation. Whenever it's parallel, something about this equation stays the same. Let me see if I can get somebody I haven't heard from. The slope stays the same. Appreciate it. So parallel line, the slope stays the same. So in this particular case, my 2 is going to be the same for this equation, and it's going to be the same for my new equation. Group A, 15 points. So if I'm writing an equation for a line with the same slope that goes through this point, somebody tell me what form would I use to write that equation? Go for it. Point slope form. They gave me a point and they gave me a slope. I'm about to start calling on some of these people that don't even look like they're taking notes. So I'm going to use point slope form. So I've got y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. My m is 2. My x1 and y1, they gave it to me, so I'm going to plug those in. I've got y minus y1, which is 3, is equal to m, which is 2, x minus x1, which is a negative 1. Everybody, what happens to my minus a negative?
Turn to a positive.
Turns it to a positive. I like your enthusiasm, Jamar. 10 points for Group D. And did I give you points for Group B for that last one? Nope. 10 more points for Group B. So my answer will be y minus 3 equals 2 and then x plus 1. And if I wanted to convert this line, this equation, because they didn't ask us to put it in a specific form, so this answer would work. But if I wanted to change it, remember triangle is a delta, it's a symbol for change, to slope-intercept form. And this is my original equation, y minus 3 equals 2, x plus 1. What would be my first step? Someone in seat 13. What would be my first step? If I wanted to take this and put it in y equals mx plus b form, what would you do first? No, it starts with a D. Distribute. There we go. Stay with me. Alright, distribute the 2 to both terms. 10 points for Group C. So I've got y minus 3 is equal to 2x plus 2. Then what will we do? Ira? So it'll be plus 3 to both sides because you're trying to get the y by itself. Alright? So this is y equals 2x plus 5. So here's our new equation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, somebody tell me something that you notice about these two equations. Somebody give me something that you notice. They have the same slope. Thank you for raising your hand. 5 points for Group D, 10 points for Group A. What did change though? Someone raise your hand. What did change? Somebody I haven't heard from before. Jamar, you raised your hand, so let's go for it this time. What changed? The y-intercept. So if you look, ladies and gentlemen, when we changed the point that it went through, the only thing that changed is your y-intercept. But the slope stayed the same. Now, if we wanted to check and see that we knew what we were doing, we can go back to Desmos. Get out your phones. We're not on Snapchat. We're not on Instagram. We're not in our text messaging app. If you didn't get this the first time, get out your phones or open your computer. Let's type in your equations. Serena, your phone's on? No. Okay. Well, open up your computers. Open up your computers and go to Desmos. You can also use your computer. You can go to Desmos.com, and if you scroll to the bottom, there should be an option for you to say graphing calculator. So go to Desmos.com. We're going to leave this page, and then when it pops up, you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says graphing calculator. So if you don't have service, feel free to use your computer every time. Now the first thing we're going to type in is our original equation, which is y equals 2x plus 1, and here it is. That didn't help. Here we go. So I typed in my first equation, which is y equals 2x plus 1. And then I'm going to add an expression, and I'm just going to use the point that they want me to go through for my second equation, which is open parentheses, negative 1, comma, 3, close parentheses. And you see they plotted my point for me. And now I want to see if the equation for the line that I created actually goes through the new point and it looks like it's parallel. So I'm going to add another expression, and I'm going to do y minus 3 is equal to 2 open parentheses x plus 1 close parentheses. And if you look, you got two parallel lines. The red one was the original one, and then the green one was the new one, and then the blue is the point that we wanted to go through. So we were able to verify that we did it right. Any questions? Anybody need me to go through those steps on Desmos again? Alright. So the first thing I did, let me erase all of this, was it should just highlight. So when you go to Desmos, you go all the way to the bottom, graphing calculator, and then the first thing we're going to type in is the original equation that they gave us, which is y equals 2x plus 1. So y equals 2x plus 1, and that's our first equation. Alright, and then I'm going to add an expression, and I'm going to type into that the coordinates for the point that they want us to go through. And I can literally just type it as open parentheses, -1, comma, 3, close parentheses. Yes, ma'am.
Can we make it any colder in here?
Unfortunately, no.
Just because of the heat.
Yeah, and by the middle of the day, it's kind of warm in here. And then the projector's been on for a while, so yeah, we can't. I wish.
Maybe I'll get you a fan.
That would be great. I could find one at home and bring it, but I doubt it. So let's look at the third step, is where we took our equation that we found, which is this one, the y minus 3 is equal to 2 open parentheses x plus 1 close parentheses. And as you can see, we have two lines that look like they're parallel, and then they go through the point that they gave us. There's a reason why I keep on emphasizing this Desmos, because you can go home and you can use it on a phone, a tablet, a computer, and make sure that you're doing what you're doing right. And I'll go over it more individually if anybody needs more time a little bit later. Now, let's look at 5B. 5B, they gave us a point, and then they want us to write the equation of a line that is perpendicular to this point. Someone in seat 15. What does perpendicular mean? It makes a cross, so the two lines intersect and they make 4 right angles. So two lines intersect, and make 4 right angles. Put those phones away, we're not using them anymore. 4 right angles. That's what it means for something to be perpendicular. Two lines intersect and make 4 right angles. Now if we want to take the slope that they gave us and get the slope for a perpendicular line, what would we have to do to this slope to be able to get the new slope? 10 points for group C, I'm sorry. What would you do? You would find the inverse of it. So what would you do?
Swap the numerator and denominator and make the sign change.
Exactly. So we swap. We call it, in math terms, you find the opposite, reciprocal. 10 points for group E. Still a solid answer. Opposite means the sign. Or another way to say that is you switch the sign. And that applies to positive or negative. And then reciprocal means that you flip your fraction. And when you flip your fraction, the numerator and the denominator switch places. So my new m in this case, everyone would be what? That's not everybody.
Positive 5 over 3.
A little bit more energy.
Positive 5 over 3.
Thank you. Positive 5 over 3. I still only hear Andrew and Jamari, but all of the rest of y'all, I'm going to keep calling on y'all.
Can you slow down just a little bit?
Sure.
Because like I'm still writing when you want us to all yell answers.
You don't have to yell if you're still writing. I got you. Yep.
Enthusiastic.
Yeah, I just need some enthusiasm. I need some energy. That's all I'm saying. X1 and Y1. It's Monday. Nobody really wants to be here on a Monday. The weekend's gone. So now I have my M. I have my X1 and my Y1. I will use the same steps as I did from example 5A. So I'm going to plug in to point slope form. Just like I did for 5A. And then you may want to convert it to slope intercept form. You may want to convert it to slope intercept form. And we're down to the last two examples, ladies and gentlemen. And I promise y'all, I'm going to be quiet. Let's get some energy so I can just walk away. I want to drop the pencil. Alright. So this last one says, write the equations in standard form. We found out earlier that standard form is AX plus BY equals C. And we also have two stipulations, two terms and conditions. A cannot be a negative or a fraction. Can't be either one of those two things. So somebody tell me what they would do. Actually, you know what? Let's go with seat number 20. What would you do first to be able to get this into AX plus BY equals C form? You were what?
I said both at
Okay. I'll give a little wait time. What will we do first? I'll come back to you. Jamar, what would you do? You move the negative 2x over. So I'd add 2x to both sides. So you get 2x plus y equals 7. And that's it. This one's in standard form. That's it. That's it. It's a little bit, it doesn't seem as complicated, but they do get a little bit more complicated. So let's look at example 6b. So for example 6b, somebody tell me what would you do first? Haven't heard from you today. Remind me your name, ma'am?
Haven.
Haven. I have heard from you today.
Yeah.
I'm tripping.
You get rid of the X.
You get rid of it or move it to the other side. Exactly. So I'm going to subtract 1 over 3x from both sides. So I got a negative 1 over 3x plus y equals a negative 5. Now, we got all of our variables to one side. However, is our A term a negative?
Yes.
That's a no-no. Is our A term a fraction?
Yes.
So that's a no-no. What will we do to change that? You multiply by the reciprocal. Yes. And in this case, we'd have to multiply by the opposite reciprocal. We'd have to switch the sign and flip it because it's a negative. But good job. 20 points for group C. That was for the first question that Haven answered. And what's your name again? Hussein? Hussein answered as well. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 3, which is the reciprocal of this fraction. And I get x minus 3y equals 15. And now we have our equation in standard form. Now let's show you. I'm gonna show you all why standard form is really solid. Is because you actually don't need to do anything to this, like algebraically, like change it to either slope-intercept form or point-slope form to graph this equation. I distributed, yes, the -3 to both of these terms. I'm sorry, y'all. The -3 got distributed to both of these terms. -3 times -1/3 becomes a 1, and then the -3 times 1, which is in front of the y, is a -3. Stay with me. This is important. The reason why standard form is important is because you can quickly find your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts. Remember, the x-intercept is when y is equal to 0, and the y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. Okay? So with that being said, if I wanted to quickly find my intercepts, what would I plug in for either x or y? So if I want to find my x-intercept, I plug in a 0 for y. So this is x minus 3 times 0 equals 15. And then, so here my x equals 15, which is the same thing as saying 15 comma 0. And then if I wanted to find my y-intercept, as she said, I would plug in a 0 for x. So this is going to be 0 minus 3y equals 15. Minus 3y equals 15. Divide both sides by -3, and y equals a -5. Or 0 comma -5. Either one of these two is our y-intercept, which means that we can actually graph this with just that. Ivan. Alright. So I'm going to slide this over, and I'm actually going to show you all how to graph this without doing anything else and being able to find the slope. And then I'm going to leave y'all alone for sure, I promise. So here we found that our y-intercept is at -5 and our x-intercept is at 15. I'm going to put this back up in a second, but let me just show you why it's important to graph it. So if I have a graph, I'm going to take up this whole sheet of paper to prove a point. So here's my coordinate plane. Here's my x and here's my y. I said that my y-intercept was a -5. So if I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I put a point, this is my 0 comma -5, which is my y-intercept. And then my x-intercept was a -15 or +15. So I'll go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I put a point right there. I can graph my line with just those 2 points. I can also find my slope. How do I go from this point to this point? I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For those of you all that are visual, we jump from one to the next. So I go up 5, and then I go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I go up 5 and over 15, which simplifies to 1/3 is our slope. So I was able to graph it with just the information from my standard form. You'll have questions like this on the assignment, and I'm going to put those notes back up. And you all are free to work on the assignment for the rest of the period. If you have any questions